So we're supposed to answer a time that was really hard to discipline and a time where it was hard to see them learn discipline. So as the kids were beginning to grow up and spread their wings, we were finding that we were no longer with them at school, a lot of their sporting events, different things that they went to, and I was feeling like I was not really knowing what was happening with their character. I mean, that's what a mom feels like that's their job is to, and a dad, to build character in their kids. So I remember praying a prayer, and I prayed, Lord, if our kids are doing somewhere and they do something that is going to change their character or affect their character, I pray they get caught. And that was a prayer that it was amazing. The number of things that the kids did that they shouldn't have and would get caught. And I would just be thanking the Lord because at least that could be addressed while they're still under our roof. Was sometime later that when David and Carolee were married but didn't have kids, that David asked me if I would kindly rescind that prayer because every time he sped, he got a ticket. And so, and I thought, okay, I guess I can let go now. So for David, it was really hard for us to watch and just allow that discipline to take its course and learn from it. And for an example for that is that we would give him at Christmas time, let's say a watch or a pair of running shoes that he was dreaming of, or a necklace or whatever. And what we were finding is that he had no worry about just leaving it out in the open. If he went to the rec center, gets stolen. Sometimes he would give it to girls, never get it back. And so the discipline for that was that we would not replace those things. That if he wanted it bad enough, he was going to have to pay for the second one. And later on, when he had his own car, sometimes he would forget or to go and get gas, and he'd run out of gas. And so he'd find himself...
Even with a little Volkswagen with a spare tank.
And so, well, I think we probably worried, but in those days, we didn't have cell phones. So I couldn't check up on him, and he had to find his way home. So sometimes he'd come home very, very late because he had to walk. But that was his discipline. For Tanya and Stacy, they had a paper route, and that paper route just was a kind of a fun way to get out because they got on their bicycles and off they went with their papers to deliver. But at one point, they got a little distracted, I think by the boys in grade 6, Charlie and Tyson, and didn't want to do their job anymore, so they stuffed them in a culvert on somewhere along the route. But what they didn't know was that a lady who knew the girls were these straight-A students was appalled that the girls would do something like that. So she called me. And so I thanked her. And when the girls came home, I said, so, all done? Yep. And I said, okay, well, now you got to go back to that culvert and get those papers out, distribute them, and then go and say to whatever her name was, I can't remember now. I'm sorry I did that. That was a learning curve.
Well, for me, the hardest time to discipline our kids, let me step back one step. For me, attitude is everything. So if my kids had done something wrong and they were not repentant and had a bad attitude about it, then I didn't have any problem disciplining them, whether it was spanking or grounding or whatever was required. But if they were repentant and sorry for what they did, then forgiveness came easily, and probably no discipline was required at all, right?
Yeah.
So toward the end, where was I headed with this? Right, so for us, it wasn't so much a challenge of disciplining, because our kids, all three of our kids were really good. Was the opposite to disciplining, and that was to look for ways to build them up, encourage them, give them self-esteem, let them know that they're children of the living God. So discipline kind of slipped into the background as they got older.
Okay.
Okay.